And now the cutest guy I know, Jace, to introduce Garret.
Without Kashik, I would be lost. Not just tonight, but generally. All right, so I had spent about a month writing an elaborate ping pong metaphor, and really it all started like 8 months ago. But the ping pong metaphor involved 3 ping pong tables and 3 players and sort of a synchronized game. And it had, it had phrases like moving parts and well-oiled machine, and it was all gonna somehow describe Garret's fiction. And then on Saturday night, I was at AWP, and I was taking some friends from Seattle to a reading on Saturday night, and the friend's dad said, I'm very disappointed. It's a big city, you're 3 young guys, and you're using your Saturday night to go to a poetry reading. And why are you doing that? And so we did anyways. And then on the plane I was thinking, why did 3 young men go to a poetry reading? And I was walking to the library when I arrived back in South Bend, thinking why would young men or young women or anybody go to a poetry reading? And then there, sort of in soft focus, like when Princess Grace Kelly comes into the room in Rear Window, there was a soft smile, friendly eyes, and that unmistakable dimple right there, right in the middle of his chin. There was Garret. And I thought, this face, this body, this southern charm, this is why any young person, male, female, whatever, would come to a poetry reading. And then I started to think that that's maybe a little reductive, because I'm sort of lost here. I want to caution against referring to him just as another pretty face, as we do. He is a good-looking male, but he's not just another entry in good-looking male fiction. This is good. This is dense, wonderful stuff. It's about 6-inch thick Cronenbergian ooze, sort of Pynchonian slick operators working in a mad world. His fiction is murky VHS electronica, but all this is still reductive because he is not just a pretty face. He ain't just your genre jockey. He's a one-of-a-kind writer, a great friend, and I'm always pumped to read his stuff, really excited to hear and see tonight. I'm introducing one man, 3 names, Garret Travis.
Setting up tech.
Garrett's actually descending from the ceiling.
Yeah. I've been working on a multimedia element to my book, so I'm going to try something out tonight. So I've never done anything like this, and so this is the first run, and all of you are here to see it go well with recording.
Do you want to turn off some light?
What's that? Oh, hold on. We're not ready to start this out. I'm going to test sound.
Cityscape and
Okay, so this is probably going to be a little bit of sensory overload, but I'm kind of intending that, I guess. So if you get tired of listening to me, then you can look up here, and vice versa. Who's Jace? You really There we go. Okay. So my book is about a number of things, but there's the section I'll be reading from is about a underground space owned by a mysterious organization that essentially just surveils everybody. They have a bunch of rooms in this underground labyrinth where have a bunch of screens linked up to the city above, and they watch people. So my video is kind of imagining some of that footage, what it would look like coming through on those screens. And I'm going to read about some characters watching some other content on screens, so like lots of screens, linguistic screens and real screens. Okay, you can play it. Paul is beginning to regularly break some of the initiative's rules, partially out of a kind of quiet, distant defiance towards his father, whom for him the initiative as a whole represents, and vice versa, partially because of the growth forming above his right shoulder blade, which best he can tell seems to ache a little less, whilst standing in one of the rooms, before the screens. The growth is a different color each day. It had begun yellow-green, like an early-stage bruise. Later he woke up, and it had doubled in size, appeared as if coated in glitter. Various internet searches haven't yielded any kind of useful results, and then he realizes the time is 10 till midnight, and he rushes from his dormitory, stumbling halfway in out of his white jumpsuit through underground hallways, inside which he still almost invariably finds himself lost. He manages to make it to the clock-in station, just 5 minutes past the start of the new day, where Tom, quote, Big T, Hauser, is zipping up his own jumpsuit, smoking a cigarette with a second one tucked standby behind his ear. "Hey-oh, there he is," says the little guy, who in the last week or so has been trying this new thing with his facial hair. "Mutton chops," Tom himself insists repeatedly, but they look more like giant caterpillars to Paul. "Don't worry, I won't tell your daddy you was late," says Big T. The caterpillars wriggle along the jawline when he speaks. Paul punches his card and moves over to the computer screen to see which rooms he would be monitoring. Paul can't really verify it, but he imagines he's been reassigned to the night shift as a kind of precautionary measure by his father, who elsewhere, somewhere, in his wood-sheened office, must fear Paul potentially bad-mouthing him to the other daytime initiative employees. This realization had kind of empowered Paul at first. The very idea that his father would, even in passing, feel some kind of intimidation or threat from him, but the thought had been fleeting and not much else. Reality was, it didn't really matter for him. Down here, where the days, where the nights, where the days, at least on the surface, there was the subtle shifting of the sky's shade to indicate the changing of the date. Inside the underground, there was but the number of employees monitoring the rooms, between 8 and 10 during the day and first part of night, whereas late shift here in Sector Y consists solely of Tom. As to Big T's reason for being stuck on the night shift, it's the result of a recent notorious story around the initiative's Sector Y. Tom, being caught, jumpsuit around ankles, furiously yanking it, in room 2188. Weird thing is, people invariably pointed out when telling the story, and everybody wanted a turn at narrating Big T's embarrassment in those ensuing 48 hours. Room 2188 wasn't even one of the rooms with screens displaying women, or even people for that matter. It was just feeds from the negation, empty street corners, piles of rotting garbage, occasional black critters scurrying across frame. Afterwards, nobody had asked Tom for an explanation, or a reason, or anything. That wasn't the way of the initiative, and Big T himself dubbed the incident a blessing in disguise. Know what I mean? He enjoyed the solidarity of late shift. He told Paul, though Paul had never met anyone who so claimed to enjoy solidarity while simultaneously managing to talk as incessantly as Big T Hauser. Up on the surface, they got TVs, cool, okay, get to watch some game shows, and some friends palling around in some other city having a way better time than you is, feel me? Big T talking to Paul as the two patrol Sector Y. They carry flashlights for some reason. Paul's never had to turn his on once. The runner lights overhead never go out, or even flicker. Us, though. Us down here, we got it made, yes sir. Big T continues, we get to see our own city on the screen, Down here's the only place you can do that, and we ain't stuck in no programming schedule. It's always something new and fresh to look at. The two stop at room 1237, and Paul slides back a little metal hatch to peer through the small porthole window, verifies that the screens are indeed still displaying, closes the hatch, and records appropriately on his clipboard. Tom, I got my favorite, sure, you got yours? I'm real into this one room right now, 1370 if you know the one. It's a shared screen, husband and wife, and she's just found out he's been cheating on her. 4 years, Polly, years, this guy, this scummy fuck. Oh, the shit's going down, I tell you, over at their place, consistently, boy. Paul supposes he'd like to see this room 1370, and T nods excitedly, a few too many times. Paul tucks the clipboard under his arm, rubs at the growth beneath his shirt a bit, follows his co-worker, who seems to have a particularly impressive knack for navigating these labyrinthian passageways. In room 1370, there are 9 screens arranged in a kind of football shape. The content of the screen is as follows. A. Long shot, low angle, chain link fenced in baseball field, grass dead, brown, burnt, single, feminine framed figure, dressed in all black, crosses diagonally. Camera appears to struggle in attempt to focus on figure, her form rapidly fluctuating between blurred and sharp, almost cut out, pasted against landscape as she moves northwest corner to southeast corner. B. Flickering feed down long, narrow space between 2 bookcases. Floor is dusty linoleum. Books, all the same shade of deep red. Shelves stretch up, out of frame, away towards center of shot, where they join at heavily shadowed peripheral origin. The lettering on the spines of the books are not of a language Paul recognizes. At a certain point, down the aisle, a few of the books have been pulled out, lie open on the tile. C. Here is Big T's screen, the one displaying the presumably soon-to-be non-spouses. Feed cuts between night vision shots of 2 cars sitting in driveway, interior living room, adorned with huge black TV hanging like family portrait. Security cam view of interior bedroom, center of which sits king-sized bed, its 2 inhabitants teetering at opposite edges. Camera cuts in closer, flickering eyelid of wife, then slightly moving lips. Big T, damn, not much doing. I mean, you know, it is something like 2 a.m. up there. I'm telling you, though, most any time you come in here, these two is getting after it, man. It be in each other's throats, you know. Camera once closer still. Cut, interior husband's circulatory system, flowing through and through with the blood made neon on account of the night vision. You want to hit play one more time? Oh, sure. It's not quite as long as me. D. Metallic grate set into concrete, something like skin but more transparent, stretched tight across the grate, camera positioned directly overhead such that feed makes visible something down there through the skin and grate, something at the far end of the tunnel, a flickering rotating light. E. Long shot, down empty hallway, no cars in sight, incremental streetlights at left extinguish one by one, beginning with lamp furthest from camera and moving closer, pushing the darkness at the end of the road, closer and closer still, till the last bulb bursts. Absence fills screen. Reset. F. Bodies writhing. Bodies in nightclub, lights, flashing, bodies spasmodic. G. Slow zoom on huge white screen at center of empty, low-ceilinged room. Forgotten black and white film projected up on white screen. No watchers but for Paul and Big T's side of the screen. White screen with empty room within one of 9 screens within room 1370. Within, etc., out to the negation. Fabric of white screen has large tear in middle, keeps lining up just so with speaking actor's mouth. Subtitles at bottom of film covered totally by black censor blocks. A different kind of language of various sized rectangles. H. Static. I. Interior, littered school hallway, desks stacked, tables folded, leaning against walls tattooed with graffiti. Cut to interior classroom, lit by 4 glaring laptop screens, 1 in each corner. Walls blacked out with graffiti. Intricate pattern adorns floor. Concentric circles spin in opposite directions, pulse. Center of circles, clutter of vibrating ritualistic symbols, triangles, pentagon, mathematical formulas, binary, hieroglyphs, money. Paul's standing just off center of the room, watches these screens for some time. Perhaps the formation is not so much a football, maybe it is an eye. That growth at the back of Paul's neck has grown warm, spreads the heat throughout his entire frame until it tingles down to his fingertips, something akin to the first few drags of a cigarette. A little smoke glides out of his mouth too when he breathes. The lump throbs and moves Paul's feet across the floor until he's pressed against the screens, until his eyes, containing the inverted reflection of the screen's content, touch softly to the glass of the screens themselves, each one individually, A through I. When at last Paul blinks, he finds himself standing back at the center of the room. Whatever was behind him, silently watching, has gone. Big T's gone too, but the little guy's voice comes back down the hallway and through the open doorway. Paulo! Get down here, I'm in 1345. You gotta see how much shit this guy has in his house. This is how it begins, moving down the hallway. Paul reaches back to touch the growth, which is morphed into little more than a darkened protrusion. The tingling, dare he say, pleasure he experienced in 1370 is gone, but the previous soreness is as well. In thinking about his father, he's formulated in his mind something akin to, though not quite as barbaric as, quote, fuck you, Dad. He catches up to Big T, suggests the two jivvy the lock on the cafeteria, snag some snacks, and then find something exciting to watch. Clipboards and regulations forgotten, a microwave popcorn bag to each of them. Paul and Big T spend the rest of the night shift, traipsing through Sector Y, peering at any and all screens as long as they like, pointing, oohing, elbowing one another. Games, bets develop. How many more drinks can this girl handle? $5 to Tom after she passes out face down on the bar next to her half-drink 7th martini. Who wins the fight in that neighborhood alley, Black Snake or Black Rat? It's not such an easy pick, because that is one huge fucking rat. How big will this guy's dick be when he takes his pants off? This is Tom's game, which Paul ends up winning, but the results of which leave both men clearing their throats, avoiding eye contact, and quickly moving to another room. Good shit, says Big T near 6 a.m. when the two arrive back at the clock-in station. They punch their cards. Big T lights a cig. He says, alls we need is some booze down here, then we'd really have us an old time, P-man. Paul laughs, not because it's necessarily funny, but because the night was a good one. Big T unzips his jumpsuit to the waist, puffs his cigarette a few times, and then, with a little salute in Paul's direction, saunters off down the hallway. Paul runs his hand through his hair and suddenly realizes how much it's grown since he's come down here. In visualizing his father, and subsequently himself and his sister Monica, Paul's taken to picturing one of those old 80s-style sci-fi movie posters, those of the hand-drawn, mural-esque ilk, in which Paul's father's head hovers massive and foreboding, his sharp widow's peak and black eyes pointed down on a suburban sprawl. Monica stands foreground, in bright cyberpunk armor, wielding some goofy space-age pistol. Paul's a little lower than that, trapped near the bottom of the poster, in a black-halled labyrinth. Both are locked in their father's sinister gaze, right side of the aforementioned's face, obscured in shadow. There is a large letter I burned or carved into the father's forehead. Behind him looms a clutter of black towers. In the past, Monica and Paul have been locked in their respective environments, running, ducking from the looming paternal sneer. But tonight, when Paul visualizes it, he's standing tall, not lost inside his black rat's maze, but in front of it, hands on hips. Jumpsuit unzipped Big T style to show off some nicely rounded pecs. His mane of hair flowing, just so. The look in his father's eyes is a little different. There is something else there. Thanks. And Dev again.